Hi there, this is my first posting. I have recently become absolutely enamored with avocado trees and grafting, and I have failed many times at grafting this summer. It is currently August 7th, and this graft is 8 days old, and I didn't realize my main challenge. This is just a Home Depot haas that I bought probably about 5 months ago. Hasn't really been doing much. Struggled from the start because the root system was pretty much dead when I got it because of extensive rains, protracted rainfall. They left it outside, and the root ball ended up dying for the most part. So I transplanted it. It's been fits and starts for me. I'm new to this, so it's been a bit of a challenge getting up the curve, but only had one of those trees die, and took it back to Home Depot. They have a great return policy, and it really was their fault. But recently I transplanted this to a, let's see, what is this? A 20-gallon cloth grow bag, fabric pot, and the reason it's dark out right now is because it's pretty early in the morning for me to be able to spend some time with my avocados. I have to wake up early, and yeah, this is, I guess, how infatuated I am with them. But I love it. So I know that this grow bag is a little too big for the age of this avocado and the root ball, but I've disturbed the root system enough to where I don't dare to move it again or transplant it again, repot it. I think it would do more harm than good. And this one was transplanted about a week ago, so it hasn't been long. Simultaneously, I guess I pretty aggressively put this graft in here, and I'm happy to say that based up in Sonoma, it's been really challenging to get a graft to take, and primary reason for that is that the summers out here are quite dry and very warm. High 80s right now are the daily highs, and as you can see here, what I've recently tried, didn't really hear anything about this online in time, but just kind of came up with it myself. But as I understand, this is a tried and a labor-intensive process, but it really does work, and it just merely creates a greenhouse effect for the graft and enough moisture or humidity to allow the graft to not desiccate, dry out, and die. So that has been the result of probably 20 failed graftings so far. It's been very discouraging. I finally realized that recently, and they seem to be taking, which is exciting. So this is not one of the first, but one of many, and I can go through and show you the rest of them. But this one seems to be doing well. It hasn't died yet. Still quite green. As you can see, there's a lot of condensation inside. And I just put reverse osmosis water filled paper towels at the bottom of the bottle here, and then I sealed it with some super cheap grafting tape that I bought, and I've kind of repurposed for kind of general purpose applications like this, where I just sealed the graft or the bottle to the main branch here using the cellophane graft tape. Again, seems to be working pretty well. Over here I have a reed. This is a new addition to this area. Also have some avocados down in Mill Valley, so kind of a separate experimental site there. Super windy in Mill Valley in my spot. Live in a microclimate, many microclimates down there, and it really is hit or miss. It gets extremely warm in our backyard, but the spring it was in May extremely windy. I'd say 30-mile-an-hour winds on a constant basis, and I bought this reed from Home Depot with about 50 avocado babies on it, and there are 2 remaining, and I'm very happy that I still have 2. Hopefully they make it through. Moving it from Mill Valley to Sonoma was a pretty aggressive change for it, given how warm it is up here. Again, while we get a lot of sun in Mill Valley, it really is kind of a completely different atmosphere up here. Much more intense sun, but the avocados absolutely love it up here, as I've found. I recently repotted this one as well, and probably made the same poor decision of putting it in a 20-gallon grow bag, as you can see here, but that was a couple of weeks ago, and it seems to be doing okay. I have some citrus here, just a lime that I replanted because it was really struggling where it was, and it's now taking off, which is really fun. Noticed that the main trunk was really getting sunburned. A lot of these plants up here get really sunburned if they don't have any foliar coverage, and so I recently painted that white. Just used regular house paint. Again, you know, I just don't see the real logic in going with the IV organics. I'm not a super hardcore organic freak. While I do appreciate organic horticulture, sometimes it's just a little bit, you know, crazy expensive. The IV organics was over $30 for a very small container, and this is just regular latex external house paint. I know you're supposed to use internal, but I figure that the amount of shedding of latex paint over the lifetime of this lime tree is going to be extremely nominal, so I'm not really too concerned about it. I have a Valencia here and a Kaffir lime tree here, but back to the avocados. So here I have another haas Home Depot purchase where I've basically cut off 2 of the main branches here at the top, and not sure if this is considered top working or not. I've been trying to figure that out lately, and but things seem to be going pretty well. I have grafted a Sonoma native tree, one that I found down in Santa Rosa. This tree seems to be quite old. It's about 50 feet tall. Now maybe more like 40 feet tall. And I took some water shoots from the base of it and basically been using them for my grafts. Where are the grafts are? Let's see. They're around here somewhere. Or the scion wood, I should say. Well, I'll come back to that in a second. It's around here somewhere, but it is a bit dark. So anyway, let's take a look at these 2. Another thing that I really like about the process of using a water bottle, again, although it is labor intensive, sometimes it's a necessity, it seems. But the what I really like is that you can actually actively watch and gauge the progress of the scion and the graft throughout, because the bottles are transparent, of course. So let's get some of that condensation out of the way. And as you can see here, barely, you have the buds that I only recently realized how important the buds were to actually yielding a successful graft, and the fact that they need to be more developed than I initially thought in order for them to be successful. As you can see here, they're starting to grow, perk up. I can show you what they initially looked like as well. But there's a bud there, and you can see they're starting to pop off. Now again, because of the heat, I am using aluminum foil to protect the scion. graft. It seems to be working quite well, given that this tree is in direct sunlight. Again, graft is quite green. And here's another graft here. Let's see. This one kind of got jammed up against the top of the water bottle here. Probably not ideal. Let's see. My dog is on the prowl right now. We have mountain lions up here, and given the fact that it's about 4:50 in the morning right now, this is probably prime time for mountain lion hunting. And yeah, we do get them this close to the house. In fact, they have lived on more than one occasion right over there. So hopefully Woody isn't picking up on something of a real concern. This video may end abruptly. So back to the scion here. As you can see, it is, let's see, it's doing pretty well also. See some discoloration at the tips here. This is the end, I'd say 8 inches of the scion, where the buds predominantly are concentrated. And while these buds had already expanded here and started sprouting to leaves, I decided just to leave them. The rest of the buds seem to be doing very well though. I don't know if you can see that there, but yeah, that seems to have sprouted quite nicely. Here you can see that's more of what bud looks like kind of when it's starting out. Still pretty young there, not fully developed. I'll be able to get a better angle here. Let's see. Lighting conditions make it a little bit challenging. There we go. You can kind of see it there. So, as you can see, you know, that does look like it's developed a little bit, starting to protrude and become, you know, sprout its leaves there. So again, pretty happy with this one. Seems to be successful so far. That was not sprouting when I started this graft, and you know, it was, again, I think only about 8 days ago that I started, say half of these grafts, 9 to 10 days ago for the rest. And here I have 2 other trees, haas's as well, and I have a bunch of grafts that I have worked onto these trees. I have some holidays. I also have another graft from another tree in Sonoma that UC Davis has said is quite rare, and the fruits from that are quite large, taking about a year to mature, but supposed to be phenomenal quality. And the homeowner was nice enough to let me take some scion clippings from his tree, which has been really cool. Okay, so this was a graft that I, piece of scion wood right here that I grafted on last night. I am going to try to protect it the best I can, given the fact that this is a veneer graft. It's going to be a little bit challenging for me to protect it with a water bottle, so probably won't be doing that, but I will try to provide as much of a moisture layer as possible. Again, I'll just probably wrap a wet paper towel below it. And right now, as you can see in here, this is kind of my makeshift grafting room, where since these trees have so many grafts on them, I wanted to try to provide a more humid environment with a misting system that's hooked up to help encourage the humidity and try to help encourage those grafts a little bit. I was excited to see last night that this graft in here had taken, and while the majority of the graft actually seems to have been strangled off by the grafting tape that I used, what do they call this? It was a cleft graft. The cleft that actually remained was doing quite well. The cambium layers had connected, and basically by overworking the bottle while trying to reseal it at the bottom here, I pulled the bottle off. Half of the scion fell off. Half of the graft fell off, as you can see right there. But luckily, the other half is still on there. So that is the first successful graft that I've actually seen take, and it's pretty cool. I'll try and get a better shot of this tomorrow, but it'll probably be similar conditions because of the day job. But it's great to see when the graft actually starts to take. Seeing those cambium layers connect and fuse. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, this one doesn't seem to be progressing quite as nicely as I would have liked it to have. I don't know if you can see that, but the buds are still pretty small, immature. See if I can get a better look at this myself. Try to get rid of some of that condensation. Yeah. Well, I can't say that it's not a success. It does look to, let's see, it does not seem like it is faring that well at the top there. Seems to be a bit discolored, a little bit wizened. So who knows, maybe the graft didn't take. Oh well, as you can see, I have many more. Okay, let's take a look at this one. That one seems to be reposition here. See if I can't get a better angle. That one doesn't seem to be doing that well. Again, for me so far, this has been a victory because I have had complete and utter failures, and based on all the research that I've done, yeah, those buds don't seem to be developing too well, but that was a later addition, so that one's probably been on there 4 or 5 days. But based on all the research I've done, this is the exact wrong time of year to be doing this. But given that I'm pretty obsessed with this right now, I just thought, well, might as well try and see if I can't overcome the environmental challenges. And it seems to be working again thus far. So the fact that I've gotten any to take at all has been somewhat of a miracle. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, as you can see, maybe you can see, the buds seem to be a little bit more developed here. And yeah, they're actually starting to pop out a little bit, which is great. I have not had that kind of success so far. This one seems to be doing all right, which is exciting. Yeah, this is pretty challenging given the lighting conditions, but I think you can see there, you can compare that to what I just focused on a second ago, which was kind of a failure, which is up here. This one's doing a little bit better than this one. And that one, as you can see, there is little to no action. Very small buds. Maybe I was a little bit premature picking this piece of scion wood here. It's probably too young. Not quite developed enough. But again, early days, so I wouldn't call this a complete write-off yet, but we shall see. Sorry, I know this might be a little frustrating given the poor quality of the video, given the condensation. This one is kind of almost completely wrapped in grafting tape, so probably not going to be too easy to really gauge success there. Probably a little bit too early as well. Again, these grafts are supposed to take about 3 weeks, 20 days to really start showing any signs of improvement. Oftentimes you see that they are completely shrouded by grafting tape, and it's just kind of a wait and see, wait for the buds to break through process. Being that I am pretty impatient, that hasn't worked so well for me. I've waited weeks and weeks on end many times now, and only to have it result in failure. So this process seems to be a little bit more interesting for me because I can monitor the progress as we're moving along instead of just waiting to see if it failed or not at the end. And again, I really think that the higher humidity levels are helping quite nicely. So let's take a look at this one. This one seems to be a little challenging to get any sort of focus. Let's see. Can you see that? This is a little bit of a lost cause. But I'll come back over the weekend and try and give you guys another take on this if anybody's interested, and see how they're doing over the weekend. It's Wednesday, and you know, I anticipate that there will be some progress over the next few days. These seem to be growing quite quickly. These two trees, you can see here, in their 30-gallon, again, I know probably way too large grow bags. You know, they've done quite nicely up here so far. As you can see, there's a pretty good amount of foliage. They're about, I don't know, 2-3 years old, grown from seed. And I am trying to graft some older plants onto this to try to get it to fruit a little quicker. Yeah, but they, the minute I brought them up here to Sonoma, they just loved it, started booming. And despite the wet, cold winters, last winter they spent the entire winter in plastic pots, and it didn't seem to bother them, which was great. They survived, and I think there were some sub 30 days as well. I imagine these are some sort of haas variety, or cross, of course. But yeah, they've been very vigorous since moving them up here. So I know there are a lot of trees around here. It just really depends upon finding the right microclimate and nerding out a bit to figure out what the optimal cultivation requirements are for these plants up here in Sonoma. All right, thanks a lot for watching.